Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks. Oh, it's echoing. Uh-oh. I I don't know what that was. Maybe one of you might need to turn down your volume. Maybe it's me. You hear that echo?
I do. I hear it when you're talking. Let me turn my.
It could be me. I have a new setup. Maybe I'm doing it. Okay, well, let's work that out. There's always some technical thing every single time.
Always. Can't be life without a technical issue.
It's so funny. Okay, well, we're live. We're live at least, and I don't hear that anymore, so hopefully we're okay. So thanks so much for joining me, Pam and Amina. It's so good to see you. So what I'd like to do is have one of you lead a centering, and then maybe you can introduce yourselves. But should we do a centering first today?
Sure.
I think I need it. Pam, you said you would do it before, so.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. You said you think you need it?
Yes, don't you?
Yeah, we all need it. Okay, so let's come into a comfortable seated posture. Sitting up nice and tall, creating elongation of spine, shoulders are soft. Gently close your eyes. Or if you choose, you can just lower your gaze. And take a moment to notice how the breath is traveling through your nose, into your body, and out of your body. Noticing if the inhalations are a little longer than the exhalations. The exhalations are longer. Without altering the breath, we're just noticing these aspects of it. Bring awareness of the breath to the belly. To the side of the body, the ribs. And noticing breath, the chest. And I invite you to send that breath to any areas of tension or holding or stress in the body. Shoulders are tight, send breath to the shoulders. Glutes are clenched, and breath there. Unclenching, releasing, and letting go. inviting softness in. The final part of this practice is breathing in deeply through the nose and out through the mouth. Inhaling through the nose, out, exhale through the mouth. One final time as you inhale through the nose and slowly exhaling through the nose. Returning to the normal breath in this space. Softly open your eyes.
Okay. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. My mic is horrible.
Wow. Do you have Facebook open, Amina? No? I don't know why that's, maybe if you...
Just close out all of your windows. If you close on anything, close out every window. That's been.
And it could be where your mic and speaker are. I don't know, or just turn down the speaker. Mm-hmm. Maybe we could maybe we could start with you, Pam. Do you mind? And well, thanks. You started already. Thanks for doing that. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if you could introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about your work.
Well, my name is Pamela Stokes Eggleston. I'm a yoga teacher and a yoga therapist. I have a business called Yoga to Sleep because I am a recovering insomniac. I think I'm still dealing with some of that sleep issues now. Like my views of sleep kind of vacillate and go up and down. And so over these past couple of weeks, actually, my sleep has suffered a little. But yoga helps me bring attention back to that. I have been working with yoga and veterans for, I guess, almost 10 years. I work specifically now with yoga for wounded warrior caregivers because I'm a wounded warrior caregiver myself. And so I kind of fell into that. And I really love the work that I'm doing. I work with a couple of nonprofits in that space to provide group yoga therapy to wounded warrior caregivers and workshops for them as well. I'm also a co-founder of Retreat to Spirit with Amina Naru. We've had that going for 2 years now. And it's really now we're full steam ahead and picking up doing stuff, working on how we can be more in touch with our spirit and our soul, how we can use these trying times to address, things like moral injury and burnout. So Amina and I do workshops around those topics. We are planning to do some trainings around that as it relates to compassionate leadership and being in a space of service. So I think that's pretty much it. Is there anything else you want to know? I mean, I try to, people can read bios and stuff, but I wanted to talk about like the things. And I'm a board member of Accessible Yoga. I guess I should mention that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know you have a new course out on self-care.
Yes. So it's called Yoga for Self-Care. Very simple. And and that's through Yoga Journal. And we're really, really, Amina and I are really excited about it. We started working on it back in January, really, and really pulling together. That was pre-COVID though, like that was, we could just do online stuff. And so we just kind of started working on it. And after we did the filming for that course, it was just like, oh man, COVID's here. And so we're trying to navigate that and put some of that kind of energy into the course, because that's just where we are. So yeah, we're excited about it. The launch was late last month, and you know, we're pushing it. We're actually just completed a webinar to talk about the course, and we had like 1,000 people show up to that, or 800 or something like that.
Wow.
So a lot of interest. Amazing. I think people are just tired, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was just interest in that way. So we're real excited. I'm really excited. I'm proud of the work that we did. Amina and I had some practices in it. I love yoga nidra and meditation and more restorative stuff. So my practices are more of that. And Amina in the course talks about, she has, I guess, some morning practices that are more active. She talks about, you know, sacred spaces, and we talk about journaling, all the things we know kind of as yogis, what to do in a one-stop shop space. And then get kind of how our experiences through self-care have evolved. And even sitting here talking about it, like I'm thinking about some of the stuff, Amina, like how that's shifted even over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The stuff we were talking and what my self-care looks like. I was on a call with somebody I met at the Austin Yoga Festival a couple years ago, and I said, you know, I didn't do any asana today, and that's okay. Like, I didn't do any. I did pranayama and I did a meditation. My meditation was like a half hour today. So I'm really trying to honor, and not to say that I won't do an asana practice later, but I'm trying to honor how I feel when I wake up. Because these last couple of weeks have actually made me exhausted. And so I'm really I'm trying to navigate that in my body. I'm really trying to honor my body. So I think part of it is, you know, I'm sick and tired, you know.
Yeah, sick and tired.
I'm sick and tired. And also, I want to just make sure I'm taking care of myself.
Right, which isn't always asana. I mean, it can be different every day.
Yeah, it has been.
Thanks, Pam. Amina, how's your mic going?
We can try it. Yeah, still not.
You know,
good. Let me try to find a headset.
Okay. So Pam and I can keep talking. We'll
I can keep talking.
Yeah. That's funny. That's what happened. I think I joined you for your course. Remember, I did an interview for you, and then I think the same thing happened. Amina couldn't be on that call either.
I think it's some. She's got the spark. She's got the energy. You know.
Yeah.
I work for her. I'm like, girl, she's got the energy, the aura. It's just throwing curveballs and all the stuff. And she's always in different places. She's never in the same place. So it can't be like it's your office or it's you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's just been amazing. I've had people reach out to me and, you know, ask about the course. I've had people just reach out and say, what are you and Amina doing? You know, with your business and that kind of stuff. So it's just been, you know, I'm honoring the space. And I've also, quite frankly, been triggered, you know, this past couple of weeks. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. So can I ask you about that? Like, how do you use yoga during that time when you feel triggered? Like, what is it that you've been able to do?
I know I just have to pause and breathe when I want to jump in. So, like I put on Instagram that I was taking a social media break, and I kind of sort of am. I'm just slowly pulling back. Yeah. Because there's a lot of great stuff happening on social media. There's a lot of really good stuff happening, but I have to not read comments because some of the comments are really, really, I mean, people just, you don't have to type everything you're thinking, you know, like, you know, you can just read and then just get out of the app. You know, you don't have to type everything. Like, you know, what about Black crime, just asinine shit. Like, do you understand how that's not appropriate right now?
You're right.
You know, like, and usually somebody comes and gets them, an ally comes and just swoops them up, but you can't, you can't get rid of all the things. So, and it's just, there's an edge to my disturbance now. I mean, not that I wasn't having issues before, but now it's just like this, it's like a fresh wound, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, America pretty much saw a snuff film. We were witness to a snuff film. Even if somebody's getting shot, this, you know, and then the cameras go off, you just see somebody and then it's done. You can almost disassociate from that. But if you're looking at a snuff film and it's a slow death, you know, painful. It's painful. Not that this wasn't going on, because this mess has been happening. This is, you know, just been happening, and it's just rebellion at this point. Now we're in a state of rebellion.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, that part feels kind of like a relief that people are talking about it and the awareness is, you know, happening, because I feel like it's been going on, you know, it's been going on forever. So, I mean, it's just amazing to see the protests and how they continue, and everyone's talking about it finally.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
I think that's wonderful. I'm in the DC area, and you know, I'm just seeing, it's just wonderful to hear. It's also wonderful. I mean, it's horrible and wonderful that there are journalists that are getting arrested for trying to do the right thing. You know, so we have to just make sure that we're supportive. And my concern is that, you know, in 6 months, there'll be this kind of fatigue, and then we won't be as energized about, you know, people of African descent having rights, and, you know, people of color having, you know, these conversations. Like, we won't be, that's my concern. I don't know that it'll happen, but
yeah, I think you're right. I think it's like going to be the next thing or whatever, you know, like as if there's really nothing else we need to be talking about. But yeah, and also the activists can get exhausted, you know, the people who are really speaking up.
I mean, you were doing this stuff with ACT UP. Like, when did the fatigue, did you have waves of the fatigue? Did you have, like, you were fatigued and then you did this, and then, like, how, I mean. Yeah,
it went on for years. You know, my activism was, it wasn't a few weeks, you know what I mean? Like, AIDS was like a reality, and that's what we were dealing with. My friends were dying, and it kept coming in waves, you know, like we had protests all the time, like every couple of weeks for years. I can't even count how many protests I went to, honestly. Some days I would just not be up to it. I wouldn't be able to go, but I was young. I was in my 20s. So I could handle it more than I could now, you know, but some days I was right in the front getting arrested. Sometimes I was just in the back, just kind of like watching, you know, so I kept shifting my role, but I was young, and I wasn't leading. I was just kind of following and learning from the older people. But yeah, I wrote about it recently too, like getting arrested multiple times still affects me now. I mean, I have a record.
Yes.
That's haunting me. I mean, seriously, I almost couldn't adopt my kids. I almost couldn't travel out of the country. I've had many challenges from that, but, you know, it's worth it. It's just like, there's realities to this work. It's intense. It is intense. And, but I feel like it's the only way to make change. You know, that's kind of how revolution happens. And it's the only way it's ever happened. This country is built on revolution.
Yeah.
That's what makes me mad when I hear people complaining about it. It's like, what do you think the American Revolution was in the first place?
What do you think the Boston Tea Party? I go back to Boston Tea Party. When people start talking about riots, I'm like, let's have this conversation the correct way. Yeah. Let's start with Boston Tea Party. Let's start with who started looting what. We want to go there. Okay, let's start with history. 101, history. and we can have those conversations and be fair.
Yeah.
That country is used to blowing shit up. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
So,
I want to see if I can get Amina back. What I have one question for you though. So in the yoga world, like one of the things we called this was about mindful leadership, and I guess what that meant to me was like, how do we help the yoga community, especially the non-Black portion of the yoga community, to understand what's going on? Because I feel like there's definitely a lot of spiritual bypassing happening within our community. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think what you're doing is imperative with accessible yoga. Like I'm so excited to be involved with accessible yoga because I believe like that's an organization of example of how to move in this space of yoga and why we need to support activism and social justice and all of the people in the yoga space doing the work that, you know, many of whom are our friends. We need to support them and you know, share their offerings, that kind of thing. And I'm excited to see that some of that going on. But I also believe that, I mean, I was just recently talking about this idea of ahimsa and people using it, you know. I mean, so my whole thing was like, okay, you can't just be vegan and say, okay, I've done my thing, you know, like I'm ahimsa, you know, so I'm a yogi and that's all. Susanna Barkataki on, I believe it was IG or Facebook, did this really great breakout of not harming ahimsa. And then she went into this whole thing about why, you know, what you do in terms of, I believe, I kind of skimmed over it, spiritual bypassing and stuff is actually not ahimsa, like you're harming, you know, and this is why you're harming. So, you know, people really need to understand that
hey,
they have
Amina.
work to do. Hey, Amina.
I'm back.
Right.
She's back. Okay, great. You have to do your own damn work and your own damn research. Like this is, you have to do it. You can't. What I told somebody earlier this morning was there are a lot of people I'm unfriending and unfollowing because the silence is deafening. If you're on Facebook and Instagram all the time posting your classes or whatever you're doing, and this goes for my yogi friends, this goes for my military friends, my folks in the military, okay, who I've had since before yoga. If you have said nothing about what is happening now, but you're posting 5, 6, 7 times a day, I'm done. You can unfollow me. I'm putting that out. Just unfollow, unfriend. I don't need to have 500 million followers. Just do it because you're showing your true colors. What's great about this, to your earlier point, Jivana, is that this is showing people's true colors and true nature.
Yeah.
You're not an ally. I don't have time for it. I don't have the space. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the emotional energy. You know, it's just do your own homework. There's plenty of books people have been posting, you know, all the books, all the resources. Do the work. But know that when you half-ass, then that's harmful too. So some of these corporations who shall not be named are half-assing, putting out generic. Oh, we stand with Black lives. If you haven't begun to change policy, if you kind of didn't have any, you know, people of African descent review your letter, if you didn't have, if you are just running some kind of business sale with the Black Lives Matter, you know, thing, you're doing that, then you're missing. You're not, you know, you've got work to do. You got work to do.
Well, so what this is doing, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
And it sounds good. Thank you.
I'm glad you're here. Yes, wait, and I want you to introduce yourself too. Like I didn't really give you a chance because of the sound.
Oh, 25 minutes in. Sure. My name is Amina Naru. I came into this yoga world about 10 years ago, and you know, I stumbled upon yoga as a help for myself with running and doing active things and needing to stretch and things like that. And was like, it was just so profound. It was a life-changing experience. And I wanted to offer yoga to people like me, people who look like me, who came from similar economic backgrounds, and yoga I found to be wasn't very accessible financially, right? Trying to incorporate that into my budget, having a family, and so I wanted to come out and teach yoga to people who typically wouldn't be able to afford it. Through that, I ventured into volunteering at detention centers, and that since has really become my life's work at this time. And moving into Retreat to Spirit with Pam, as a co-founder, and bringing these tools and our richness of leadership to other professionals in the field who typically, who could use some self-care techniques and routines, because, we're out there serving, our communities and actually depleting ourselves and not really, a lot of us not knowing how to refill the cup and to teach and give from the overflow, as opposed to, consistently depleting the cup and still trying to go on and have a life for yourself. And what that often does is make people feel kind of resentful for, their work. And I've heard many yoga teachers say, like, I just want to go back to my practice. It's just like, I want to go back to when I loved, this thing, but when we find that when we're giving and giving and giving, it can actually kind of take you away from the real reasons why you really got started and your love for it. So that's what Pam and I do together, collectively, to help other professionals in the field as ourselves to, to not get burnt out, or to have tools to resist and fight against burnout, and how to continue to serve from the richness of your own practice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And then, you started sharing something. Do you remember what it was?
I did. I think I do. It was about, at this time, how these conversations, like you mentioned, Jivana, that what's happening now is starting the deeper conversations that, we all need to have about race and, how we actually feel, and ask questions. I think that, in my opinion, white America has been afraid to touch this topic or talk about it, because of the white fragility that happens when, race comes up. I could totally understand that it's uncomfortable, right? But at this time, things are being talked about and things are happening. And I understand that was part of how South Africa tried to recover, from apartheid, was they opened up those conversations, and people began to express themselves and be heard, and things like that. And so, hoping that some of that energy can translate over to, in our country. And so far, Pam and I have received huge amounts of compassion and, people reaching out, our white friends reaching out and asking, what is it we can do? And, can we help? And we're sorry. And, and that's it's a huge start. It's a huge start. And even I've gotten text messages from people I haven't heard from in ages. It's just I'm thinking of you right now. Is there anything I can do to help you? Please know that, I'm here. So, I just wanted to add that to part of the conversation.
But it seems to me, as a white person, it seems like my job is to educate other white people and not have to put that on the shoulders of people of color. And you know, like Pam was saying earlier, there's so much out there, like people can read. You don't have to reach out to individuals and ask them to teach you. There's tons of books and articles and videos, lots of movies even. People can find resources to learn about it themselves. And I'm curious, especially in the yoga community, what do you think? That's what I was asking Pam earlier, like, what do you think that we can do in the yoga community to address racism and also this kind of the denial part? Like, that's what I guess we were getting at is like, you know, there's just kind of this denial that racism is an issue in yoga, and like, oh, well, if we're spiritual, we just can rise above that.
Yeah, right. That spiritual bypassing part.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is important for white people to teach white people, you know, because otherwise it falls on our shoulders, right? And then we're having to educate out of our own traumas, right? And then which inflicts more trauma because we're having to, you know, take care of, our oppressors or people who are like, you know, it's making it our responsibility. So then it becomes another task or job. And we've experienced that quite a bit in these last few months. I mean, I was quite surprised that it came to us. And I was like, why is it our responsibility to take care of the person who caused the harm?
Yeah.
You know? And I'm not sure, I will lean on my good friend and colleague, Dr. Gail Parker, for, information on how to actually navigate those type of conversations. But I think the start is just creating the space for authenticity and vulnerability. And we have to address each other with openness and, not fear what could potentially come out of the other person's mouth, but be able to stand there and be open and hear and accept and offer some, compassion in return.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of white people speaking up, and I appreciate that. I think that's what we need to be doing. We need to be teaching and talking about it a lot, all the time. Just like I feel with all kinds of oppression and marginalization, that's our job. Like, how else would this ever change? But I know I see a lot of, there's like a weird tension I see is like some white people approaching people of color, asking them to be their teacher and explain to them, what can I do? I don't know, that feels awkward to me. It's like a lot on social media that I see that happening. It doesn't seem necessary. It doesn't seem necessary to do it like that. So in yoga though, I guess there's so many great books even in yoga. Like there's so many people we know that have already written about this topic. I mean, you mentioned Dr. Gail. I mean, her work is really about race-based trauma. And I know she's leading groups for people of color only, right? Like she has I think I saw she has a webinar maybe tonight that's for people of color only. So I think white people also need to respect that, like understand that they can just step back, be quiet and learn and listen, educate ourselves, let people of color have their space and be able to, deal with the emotions that are coming up right now.
Yeah. Right? And then, more specifically, because there's this term POC that has been birthed. I think I first heard it maybe 5 years ago or 4 years ago. But, I have to ask, like, where do I fit in the POC part? Because I am a Black woman of African descent, right? And so POC does not necessarily focus specifically on, you know what I mean? Like what is happening now in this country is strategically going after and targeting Black people in this country. So when POC comes up for this particular time, it's like, we're talking about Black folks,
Black
you
folks.
know, not, brown and Mexican or whatever the other, nationalities are that, or ethnicities that fall in that umbrella of POC. So that kind of takes away from the impact, right, that we can be making, or the help that needs to come to specifically towards Black people during this time.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other thoughts about the yoga community, what we can do, and how to avoid that spiritual bypassing we talked about? I mean, I like, yeah, Pam, go ahead.
Jivana, that you can't, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. If no one is willing to do their own self-study, didn't Diane Bondi write something on Svadhyaya? And if you're not willing to do your own self-inquiry, self-reflection, if you're not willing to peel back your own layers and face those challenges and face yourself and face your own fears and your own racism and your own reality of how you benefited from white supremacy, because that's what this all is. And we've all suffered from white supremacy, quite frankly. We've all had the veil pulled over. Black, people of African descent the most, in my opinion. But so we've had this, and we have to do our own work in looking at our privilege. And I know there's some people who like the term privilege and all of this stuff. We have to use the language that we have to address the issues that are prevalent. And so I'm not going to argue about, should I use this term privilege and I feel this some kind of way. This is the language that we have. We know what this means, right? We know what Robin DiAngelo meant when she wrote "Right for." We know, we understand that, and so we need to be involved in these conversations while we're doing our own work. Yoga practitioners, yoga teachers, yoga therapists, students of yoga have to do their own work. If you are bypassing, if you're trying to act like nothing is going on, you're part of the problem. Yeah. I don't know how you force somebody to not look at their own, to practice the, yamas and the yamas. It's just basic. Yeah. I don't know. And it's basic to social justice. These things are, don't we remember what Gandhi was doing? I mean, he wasn't just sitting under a tree, there was activism in all of this stuff. So I'm trying to, it's perplexing me to watch it. And I'm like, were you just doing asana? Were you just an asana teacher, at a gym just trying to do asana? Or were you really embodying the totality of what yoga is, which is so much larger and can really be applied to these issues? It's really about self-inquiry.
Yeah. And also people need to get mentors. I think when we're in a leadership role, we kind of feel like, I have colleagues or I have peers, but where are the mentors? Where are the people who can hold you accountable for, your actions or non-action, right? Because, through the inquiry and self-study, we can only see what we see, right? And sometimes you have to have an outsider's view, someone that that knows you, loves you, and trusts, and you trust, right? The mutual trust and respect that can give you some good, honest feedback to help you go back home and continue doing your work and self-study. So there's every teacher needs a teacher. We need mentors and people who hold some leadership in our own lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. That's what I've been writing about, actually, is about Gandhi. I have his Gita right here. Do you see? There he is. Okay. Because I was thinking exactly about what you just said, and both of you were saying. I mean, that self-reflection is the core of yoga, Svadhyaya. But it's like we skip that part because it's hard, It's not fun. It's not fun doing, it's not a handstand. But it's like the core of teaching is that that self-reflection. You know, in the beginning of in chapter 2 in the Yoga Sutras, we have tapas, svadhyaya, ishvari, pranadhana. That's the beginning, right? And then you have svadhyaya. That's that looking at yourself, like looking at the mind and noticing where you're not seeing things clearly. It's just like, you know, trying to refine your vision. And that's right. I posted that article from Diane Bondi about yoga, race, and culture from Yoga International. That's a great resource for people. She talked about that. And I've been writing about it too. I just feel like that's the heart of social justice. I mean, Gandhi overthrew the British rule in India based on these teachings, Satya and Ahimsa and Satya.
Yep.
You know, he called it Satyagraha, the power of truth. And that's like, it's an individual practice and a group practice. It's almost like that's what America is going through right now. Like, we're seeing more clearly the truth of what's been happening. But I think as yogis, we should have been doing that all along. That's our job. We have to look at our own attachments, our illusions, right? The way we've distorted reality. So yeah.
That's the hard stuff. I think I think I'm going through some of that, Jivana, where I'm like, yogis should have known better. Like, really trying not to wallow in that too much, because you know, like, yogis should have known better because of whatever. But people's is people's, as my sister says. I think she got that from the Muppets. People's is people's, you know, because so wherever you go, there you are. Like, if you had some stuff and you pretended to work through it and you pretended to show up like the perfect yoga teacher, then the stuff's still there. So you're in this mess. Mm-hmm. What this time has done is just complete illumination. It's complete illumination. So we see everything. Cameras are everywhere. The iPhone 10 have phenomenal cameras. So you can film this like high quality stuff, you know, on your phones now. Yeah. That's, you know, great and, you know, horrific simultaneously for different reasons. So I have been working with that. Like, you know, because it's really, if you understand people, you understand people are just going to be what they are. Even if we're supposed to be doing, you know, svadhyaya, if we're supposed to be doing the self study, if we're supposed to be working in truth and looking at how we're not harming, you know, working with ahimsa. So I think we just have to, meaning, well, what I do is I just have to do what I need to do to take care of myself. Like, I have been really diligent with that, because there was a time in my life where I wasn't doing it. This is why I've been just going back to my 20s when I was the caregiver for my mom, and I wasn't, you know, you just pour into the other person and you look up and you're depleted, and you cannot move into the rebellion being depleted. So, you know, as my life is different stages as a caregiver, and I left this kind of care for myself behind, you know, it's just not the answer. So I understand the need for community care. I understand the need for care for everybody, but I also understand that I'm just speaking for myself, have to do my own shit. I have to do my own work. I have to care for myself so that I can have a charged battery, so that I can go and put that energy into my communities. I have to do that. And that's a daily practice. That's when I go to the store. I was just using this example earlier, and put on a mask. And if I see somebody without a mask, I don't just go, but I just take a deep breath. They're going through something else. Yeah. Maybe, you know, whatever. Maybe they don't feel like they need to wear a mask. Maybe they're lifted the mask. Start breathing. I've been breathing a lot more consciously off my mat. Not just pranayama, you know, to prayer for something in a pose or something. But before I get out of my car, you know, I'm breathing consciously. Let me do a couple of dirga, you know, breaths before, you know, even if I have to do it consciously, and, you know, I'm standing in front of somebody as they're talking to me. Conscious breathing. And that's what, I mean, this COVID it's a respiratory issue. Yeah. It's a respiratory.
And isn't what you're saying, I mean, that I think what you're saying is that self-care is connected to this, to svadhyaya too, though, like that in a way, like by turning back to yourself, you connect with yourself, and also you learn more about yourself. I mean, I feel like that's what they go together. Like it's,
and that's scary. It's scary to learn about yourself, because some things, some things you don't want to know about yourself. I think we're dealing with a lot of that. I don't want to know that I'm inherently, racist.
right.
What did Amy Cooper say? I voted for Obama. I mean, that was in Get Out. Did we see the movie Get Out? That was, what did we say in Get Out? I'd vote for Obama a third time, or whatever the dude said, but they were still doing what they were doing.
Right.
That's how insidious white supremacy is. You can't, it doesn't matter if you're a liberal or whatever. You think you're something white supremacy told you that you were better, than how dare this black man tell you to do something that you should have been doing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the stuff that we have to unpack and, understand what happened in that moment. And this whole idea about, I was ticked because everyone's like, oh, he went to Harvard. Like, I don't care if he just got out of Rikers. Like, we have got to stop that shit. Oh, he was a good one. We have to put an end to this. This is part of the white supremacist mess. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I also would like to highlight that the course that Dr. Gail Parker did with the Yoga Service Council. I mean, that was a groundbreaking, phenomenal. I mean, dive in, uncover your stuff. Everybody is walking around with racial wounds in some kind of way. I mean, you don't have to just be black to have racial wounding. Like it's prevalent. It's all over, right? And I encourage people to look into that course. It was a 6-week process of diving in, looking at your stuff, peeling back the layers, going into your family history and generational traumas. All of those things are coming up and playing a part in how you live and interact with people on a daily basis. Even if you think you're the most loving, compassionate person, and I have black friends and I have these friends and I have, you know what I mean? It's worth it. It's worth a deeper dive. Anyone who is really interested in trying to heal, this hurt and pain that is taking over all of us right now, will do the internal work that is needed, right, to be able to show externally. So that course was called Shining a Light on Racial Wounding.
Is this available, you think? That's what Barry's asking on Facebook. I guess we have to go ask them at Yoga Service Council, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to
that was up on the,
access that now, but
we ran it live when Amina and I were there as co-EDs. And we invited Dr. Parker to be a part of our Yoga for Self-Care course as well, because she is a premier subject matter expert on this stuff. I mean, she's been doing this stuff for decades, right? So
her new book just came out.
Yeah, it's not coming out in August. I keep feeling, so I have it on pre-order. So, Amazon saying it's coming in August, but she's going to be amazing. Yeah.
But I appreciate that, Amina, because I think we talked about the importance of svadhyaya, but I think a lot of people don't know how to do that. Like, we don't teach people, as yoga teachers, we're constantly teaching people how to find their alignment in, Warrior 2, but we don't tell them how to actually practice yoga, which is, what do you do? What does reflection look like? And that sounds like that's what she was teaching, like one way in, right? You have to examine your attachments, your history, your life, your family, everything. You have to look at yourself, and it's hard. And you mentioned earlier, Amina, too, like having a mentor. That's another great way.
Absolutely.
There's lots of tools. I think that if you're doing asana, consider, like she does restorative yoga. Like, what's coming up for you in the asanas? I believe, for instance, for me, in my practice through moving through this stuff in these past few weeks has been, I need to hold the postures longer. I need to breathe through the postures, and I need to be grounded in each of the postures. So if I'm doing a warrior two, I need to be really feeling that throughout my body, bottom to top, really feeling the ground beneath, really connecting with the sky above, really breathing into that. I mean, so connecting with each of the using the tools of yoga to really connect. And in meditation, which I think people gloss over, I don't, you know, I mean, meditation is a really powerful tool.
Yes.
And has brought me to tears in my own stuff of unpacking and just really examining, you know, where my edges are. Right. So I would definitely, I'm a strong proponent of those tools.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's another byproduct of the way that yoga has been limited and, colonized, the way that we've taken it apart into pieces and we practice just one thing, just asana, and we think that's it. I know for me, like working, like I have issues with ashrams and gurus too, but I have to say, like, I appreciate the time I spent connected with an ashram and with a guru. And I feel like that community, what it did is it made me look at my stuff. Because when you're working in a community, a spiritual community, it comes up. Like you can't avoid your issues. But like if you're just living your life and you just go to yoga occasionally, or you're teaching, even just teaching occasionally, you're not connected with a spiritual community that like keeps you honest and makes you and acts like a mirror for you, then it's really hard. It's really hard to know how to do this work. So I feel like the demise of like the community of yoga and the teacher, right? Like you said, a mentor earlier. I mean, like that's so important for all of us to have ongoing in our lives. I mean, like I started going to yoga therapist myself about a year ago, maybe a little more now. And, I think I'm this great yoga teacher, right? And then I went to a teacher as a student, and it's been eye-opening for me. Like, what haven't I seen in myself, in my own body, in my own practice? It's amazing. Being a student.
David said, Lipschitz, in one of our calls a couple of weeks ago, he said, which is so true. He said, the more I found out, just the thing, the more we know, the more we don't know. The more we find out, the more we don't know. He said, I don't know anything. I'm like, the more we find out, the more you realize.
Yeah. The more the more you know, the more you don't know.
And that's why this yoga thing is a journey. There's no arrival. I don't want to ever arrive, because at that point, I'm doing this, No. But I want to be on this continuous journey of learning and spaciousness and discovery. This space of discovery. And this discoveries are hard sometimes. Sometimes they bring you to your knees. They bring you down. You're just like, oh my God. They're heavy.
Yeah.
Sometimes
they uplift you.
They're uplifting, So
because I feel like this is what I'm working on. My book I'm writing right now is about this topic, like about how can yoga shift your awareness? You know what I mean? Like that to me is really what the practice is about. And I'm trying to explain that in a book, which is challenging, but I think it's about opening your mind. It's just like yoga opens your mind. And around the world, there's a lot of closed-mindedness. A lot of people stuck in their opinions and their political ideas, and because of white supremacy, because of basic greed and ego and selfishness. And I feel like yoga is the antidote to that. But we have to do it. You can't just do one little part of it. You have to actually practice yoga to have it.
Too. It opens your heart. And yoga allows for your spirit and your soul, to soar.
But there's
it's a heart opening, spiritual, soulful experience. What were you gonna say?
There's the various on ramps, right? Though, you know what I mean? Somebody may come to yoga because of an injury. Right. And they are introduced through the asana practice. Right. Some people may discover yoga through a meditation, like you know, you go to this event at the library, it's free. They're going to teach you how to meditate, and boom, you're like, that's the on-ramp. So, you know, there's different on-ramps to the yoga practice that opens you up to the rest of the, you know, the rest of the limbs. And we had a conversation with one of our colleagues, peers, Shanti Yogini, and we talked to her. She was in India at the time a couple weeks ago. And she stated that, Jivana, you had spoken to this earlier about, you know, the separation that happens in this country as far as yoga goes, around yoga. Like there's yoga, the asana, and there's yoga, the spirituality of yoga. So you have people who, you know, are all about what's happening on the mat, and you have people that is all about what's happening, you know, in the ashrams and, you know, in the spiritual community of it. When what we're trying to do is develop integration. So integrating all those parts, like you may specialize in asana, but there is something that happens, like Pam said, right? There's something that happens here, right? Through your asana practice, or something that may happen here. And so those different openings are opportunities for the integration to happen. But we can't just rely on ourself alone for those things to happen. We need the mentors, we need to reach out, we need to continue our education, we need to have a spiritual community to help support us and hold us accountable. So it's like, it's so multifaceted, but it's definitely not a solo journey. It's definitely not a solo journey in my experience, from what I have discovered. And trying to do it alone isolates, and it stunts the growth. So then evolution can only get to a certain part or a certain peak, and then you get stagnant. And sometimes we don't even realize we're stuck or stagnant in our own processes until, you know, we expose ourselves to a person or a group of people who can say, hey, you need to go back and do some more work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. You said that beautifully. And you're helping me a lot clarify the work, the writing I'm doing right now in my book, but I don't think that was the point today. So, but thanks anyway.
Well, we're knocking down, you know, we're getting a few things done with the one stone.
Yeah. I'll quote you in my book.
Oh, thank you. That would be great. So, you know, our Yoga for Self-Care course speaks to all of this. And it is a 6-week course where we bring experts in to help, you know, support the weekly lessons. We're talking about community care. We're talking about, you know, the trauma and how that plays a part in how you take care of yourself, you know. So it's a deeper dive. It's taking the magnifying glass to what you deem as your own practices that you may need some tweaking or a little more work involved. And, you know, bringing the people in to support. And Jivana, you're on here as well. So Jivana is one of our experts as well. So
you put, when we're done, Amina or Pam, one of you, we put the link in the chat for your course.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, because I mean, we mentioned Dr. Gale's course, but I actually think your course is happening now, and it's yours, the two of you, you know, sharing and teaching, and I'm sure it'd be really useful for people that are interested in the topic. You know, like self-care as a journey inward, so that you can offer community care, so that you can be of service, right? I mean, it's all connected. Like you can't serve without taking care of yourself.
Yeah,
that's what I got from your course, at least what I've understood from it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's so exciting because, like I said earlier, there's so much outpouring and there was so much interest, and it was really, it was nice to see, because people are just like, what can I do? Like, you know, to alleviate.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome. I think we're waking up. I feel like the yoga community is, you know, kind of waking up. We're trying, some of us, you know, to what yoga is, how we can actually serve through our practice, and take care of ourselves at the same time. All right, anything else you want to share? Because we're at an hour. I don't want to take any more of your time. Any last thoughts?
Um,
I think we covered it.
I think we did. I think we did.
All right. So yeah, please, you put the link in the chat and Facebook. And thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. And everything that you do. I mean, I really love working with both of you. It's been incredible. So thank you both.
Thank
you for having us. Thanks, Jivana.
Okay, bye.
Bye.